Welcome to Confessions of a Parent Coach. I'm Coach, a mother of four, and potty talker, Ann Kaplan. This is the podcast where I confess something from my own parenting and coaching life, teach a lesson around it, and answer your questions. Even we parenting experts are far from perfect, and the real magic happens when we get down with all that imperfection. We get into the gritty side of parenting here, so earbud up and dive in.
Welcome into the podcast, everybody. I'm so excited to be here with you for another episode. And just a reminder, if you need to get in touch with me in any way, if you want to learn more about coaching with me, you could always go to my website, AnnKaplanParentCoach.com, and you will find your way to exactly where you need to be easily that way. Today, what I want to talk to you about is what I like to call the potty training approach to all discipline. So, I'm going to give you an example from my own life. So this is going to be it's going to be a hybrid story / confession that's going to help you, see where I'm going with this, because that sounds kind of funny. Like everything you do with your kid is actually potty training. But I think you're going to get where I'm going with this as I keep talking. So I'm going to give you an example from when my daughter was very, very young. Not very, very young. She was like kindergarten. She used to have really long curly hair and she wouldn't just like many, I guarantee there's like 100 moms out there listening to this right now being like, too. She would not brush her hair. She would fight with me about her hair. She would scream and cry anytime I even like approached her with a hairbrush. Not to mention when I finally did get her to sit down and do her hair, she would cry because obviously it hurt. Of course it did. It would take us like a ton of time in the morning. There were plenty of times where I just like let her go to school with her hair in a rat's mess because, I don't want to be late and all this stuff. But I never really did anything about it. And it became this like chronic thing, or it's just like this huge eye roll, like, ugh, Gigi's hair, ugh. And so probably for like months of her kindergarten year, like we would be a little bit late to school, not a ton, but maybe like in 5 minutes or something. We would have a bunch of tears in the morning about her hair. We would, be fighting about it, or, it would distract me from other things that I needed to do, like finishing up the kids' lunches, all of that stuff. And then, of course, all the hair drama was playing out against the backdrop of all the other morning stuff, like getting all the kids' teeth brushed. Like at this time, Gigi was in kindergarten. I also must have had a second grader and a fourth grader and an infant. Oh no, I didn't have an infant yet. Don't want to give myself too much credit. And so, I'm making 3 lunches. I'm making sure everyone's got their backpacks, all the stuff to get ready. And across that, all happening in the background is like the hair drama every day. And then she would be at school. It would just be like, ugh, whatever. I'd like kind of cleanse my mind of it. I really wouldn't think about it at all until the next morning. And then I eventually started trying to get somewhere with her, like, oh, well, you can't have breakfast until you brush your hair or whatever. But it was still always in this way of being like super distracted. And it just never got any better until finally one day I lost my temper with her. I have to give myself some credit. Like I felt like I really kept it together with her around her hair pretty much always. But finally I reached my breaking point one day and I am not happy about how I behaved because I was super angry and I was just like, I'm so tired. You make us late every morning. You cry and scream, but you don't take care of it's like I did the whole like verbal diarrhea on her. I was just like vomiting all of my like ranty feelings at her, which is, well, first of all, useless. Second of all, super toxic and destructive. And third of all, not her problem. Like my feelings are my problem. Right. So, and then I literally that day, I was like, when she comes home from school, I'm cutting her hair. And I did. I sat her down in the kitchen and I cut her hair. The reason why I bring this up in terms of like using a potty training approach to all discipline is because if I had done this thing that I'm about to teach you, none of this would ever happen. And I have since subsequently used this approach for pretty much any discipline situation that's a chronic problem, including with my teenagers and everything. So I want you to think do your little imagination thing. Remember, depending on how old your kid is, this might be either imagining into the future or it might be a very distant memory for you, or it might be really, really recent. But remember or imagine that time when you potty trained your kids. If you are potty training, what doesn't matter what kind of potty training you decide to do. Could be, oh, the 48 hours method or the bare bottom method or the blah blah blah. It doesn't matter. Using the Cheerios, using the M&M. I don't care. That's a topic for another podcast. But whatever potty training technique you use, almost every single one starts with the same thing, which is set aside a couple of days to figure this out. It'll say, like, start on a Thursday or a Friday and give yourself the weekend, or wait until you have like a school vacation. And so you could really be super vigilant. And then it also says, like, don't have other things going on. Like, don't have friends come over. Don't go to a dinner party. Just give yourself these like 3 or 4 days where all you're doing is singularly focusing on potty training. And when you do that, now you might be thinking, oh, okay, I get it. And saying set aside 3 days to figure out your discipline problem. Yeah. And don't get too ahead of me. Okay. Because what happens in your brain when you do that thing for potty training? When you set aside and get very intentional about working on this chronic behavior, let's be honest, like peeing in your pants is a chronic behavior. It's not a misbehavior. Your kid's not bad or wrong. They just haven't learned not to do that yet. But that's a chronic situation that you're trying to really turn the ship to go in a different direction, right? When you set aside that time to approach that chronic behavior that way, a switch is flipped in your brain so that when your child has an accident, you're not upset with them. You expected them to have an accident. You were ready for it. In fact, you probably already had bought like extra paper towels and wipes and spray and blah, blah, blah. You maybe even had a pad down on the couch or something, right? When your child says they have to go to the bathroom and then you get there and they don't pee, you're not mad about it. That's part of potty training. You were ready for that. When your child says they don't have to pee, gets off the toilet, and then pisses themselves 2 minutes later, you're not mad about it. That's just what's supposed to happen during potty training. You were ready. You probably have a whole stack of undies so you can swap them out and you keep it light, because that's the other thing that all these potty training things say. They always say, don't get upset when they have an accident. Don't shame them. Don't yell at them. It's just, no, you had an accident. Don't worry. We'll keep trying. Right. And you're hyper vigilant. The second your child shows you a sign that they have to pee, oh, let's go to the potty. The second that you see your child possibly showing some of their signs that they're not communicating with you, but you can read their body that they have to pee, you're on top of it, right? Think about all the things that you do around this behavior that are so effective. That's why it is possible for a child who is ready to potty train to all of a sudden go from constantly peeing in their pants all the time to a completely different way of acting in the world within a matter of days. And any parent out there who's potty trained their kid can attest to this. It's very true. Now, we're not going to talk about when you're trying to potty train your kid and they're not really ready for it. And then you're just like beating your head against the wall. That's a whole different thing. But in general, if you're trying to work on a behavior with your child, I would say let's make sure your child's developmentally ready for that modification in their behavior. We're assuming that that's the case. I want you to take this potty training approach to all of your kids' behaviors. If you decide my project for the next 48 hours is to really work on this particular thing, and I can give you examples for like every age group. So a great example would have been Gigi's hair. If I had decided like I'm going to get this figured out. That is my plan for the next 3 to 4 days. This is the week. This is the school week where we get hair stuff figured out. And if it turns out that we need to cut her hair, at least I will be doing it without screaming and yelling at her and being a rager. Okay. But I didn't do that. That would have been a really great example. Homework is another example. Or my eldest son getting a job. Or no, not my eldest. Sorry. My second eldest son getting a job, which I can tell you that was like my project for a while. Hooey. This approach changes everything. And it's not because you have time. It's not because of anything like that. It's because you changed your attitude. Now, all of a sudden, their mistakes aren't upsetting to you because you were expecting them to mess up. All of a sudden, when things go wrong, you have a very calm, loving, neutral attitude towards it. And when they start going astray, you are ready for the consequence. You are ready to respond to their choice. You are ready to really immediately give them the experience they need that will help them change their behavior. When we are like multitasking crazy people all the time in our parenting, it doesn't work. We are half assing everything instead of whole assing one thing. That's what we do when we potty train. It's like one of the only times in parenting where we decide to whole ass this parenting situation. And it works. So I really want you to tell yourself, like, when there's a chronic thing that I want to modify with my kids, I am going to whole ass it. I'm going to potty train them about it. Another time that I will say I see people do a similar thing to this is sleep training if they choose to sleep train their babies. Sometimes that will be another time where they whole ass it. But just really think about it. Like, how often are you actually whole assing it with your older children? The older they get, the more half assed we become. And then shit gets real. Like, kids have major problems, like with their homework or with, I don't know, the choices with their social world, doing drugs, having sex, how they show up in with their friendships. Like, these things, I'm jumping from like a toddler to a teenager, but it's woven in there all the time. It's not even just about getting the kids' behavior on track. It's about how you feel when you're doing something. Like, half-assing something means that everything is irritating you all the time. Whereas if you decide, like, you know what, this is really important to me and I'm going to figure it out. Here I am. I'm devoting myself. I am present with this challenge until it's no longer a challenge. Oh my gosh. Just even saying that feels so much lighter. You know, it's like I'm not just dealing with this challenge plus 700 other things. I'm just present with this challenge until it's no longer a challenge. Oh, that's so doable. I can totally do that. So think about that. Consider using the potty training approach to parenting for everything. I would love to hear from you what your examples are. And if you are ready to have me help you, not in this theoretical general sense that you get from the podcast, but specifically, tangibly, personally, uniquely to your specific family, to your specific child, to your specific challenges, we should be talking. I would love to meet with you. Set up a free discovery call. Tell me all about it. Tell me everything, the feels, the struggles, the challenges, the limitations, everything. And I will help you figure out the pathway to better for you and your family. And we can decide if we're the right fit to keep going in that direction. Have a great week, everybody. Whole asset today. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
The episode is over, but there's more waiting for you. You can grab my free workbook, Getting Kids to Listen the First Time, that walks you through the fundamental principles I teach all of my clients and applies them to this very universal parenting challenge. So if you're sick of repeating yourself all day long or just want to learn more about my style, you'll definitely want to go to bit.ly/kidswholisten. And if you're ready to work with me, let's meet. Set up a free call at bit.ly/Kaplan call, and let's create an action plan that gets you exactly where you want to go. And of course, links to all this goodness are in the show notes. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you next time.